Welcome back students in this video of Monster Technology. So in the previous video we have discussed some basic concepts of components and props. In this video we'll discuss about some limitation of props, but also let me first tell you how to export multiple components from a single JavaScript file. So for example, in the previous video I have created this test component. Now, this test component is default for this particular file. So if I import something from this file, this test component will by default exported from this. But what if we want to create some multiple components? We want to create 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 components in a single JavaScript file. For that, we'll use multiple component rendering. For that, we'll have to code. So let me just code an additional component. So I'll write down function second. So this is my function seconds. This is my second component. Also, let me show you another component. We'll write down function third, which is my third component. Now, we'll write down return h1 hello world and h1 how are you. Now, if we want to export this, so these are not the default components. We'll write down export, and in braces we'll write down second comma third. So this is we have to. So these are the second and third. So these are the components which we have executed, which we have exported. Now in the index.js file, we just have to import. Second and third from the same test component. So we'll do it like this. Now let's remove that unnecessary code. So now let's call second and third. Hello world. Okay, so there is a problem with the third component, I guess. Okay, we forgot to return this. So we'll return this. So you can see hello, how are you? Now let's pass some property to this component. So let me pass second component a number. So we'll write down, we'll pass number. So we'll write down, so we'll pass number equals to 10. But we cannot pass integer, we have to pass a string. So we'll write down like this. Now let's accept this from second. Props, and we write down props dot. So this is the output. Now what if we want to change the value of this particular number? So that is quite easy. We'll store that particular number inside a second variable. So we'll write down var num equals to props dot number, and we'll simply increment this. So we'll write down num plus plus and pass the num on the place of number. So we'll get the incremented value of that particular. So let's say if I want to use a function to continuously increase that variables. So in this example, we just took 10 from the index.js file and incremented that particular value by 1. Now let me show you another example. But now let me show you a code where I will create a counter on that particular property. So I'll write down, let me put a button over here. So button will have the onClick method. So in this onClick method, let me pass a function. So the function name is increment. So this is the name of the function which will, I'll just create inc, which will increment this number again and again. So let me remove this from here. Now let's check the output of that particular code. So also I'll write down click me, and let's remove this code from instance. Now let's check the output. So now you can see we have 10 and we have the click me button. But if I click on this button, nothing will happen. So does that mean the value of that particular variable is not increasing? Now let's just execute this. Now let me just print this number onto the console. So let me show you console.log this. Now let's check the output. So if I refresh this and click on this, so you can see there is an output on the console which is 11. So that means the value of that particular property is increasing but not showing on the screen. If I click that again, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, the button is working, the increment function is working, the property is also incrementing, but it will not show onto the screen. Why so? So in React, the document will not re-render again and again. That's why the output on that particular document is one from initial state, and as the console is live and the console can be rendered again and again, so we can see the output onto the console, which is an increment output. So this is the basic limitation of the props inside the. This is the initial. So this is the basic limitation of the props in. Now, what if we want to update some kind of values onto the document in the React app? So we cannot use props on that particular place. So this is the limitation of that prop. Now, on the place of prop, whenever we want to increment or decrement or to, so whenever we want to change a property on the runtime, we cannot use props. We'll have to use the state of the particular React app. Now, what is state? So what is a state? A state is an updatable structure. So we can update the value of a state inside the component that is used to contain data or information about the component. The state in a component can change over time. So we can change the state. For example, if I took a variable, if I took an age or anything, any state, so we can update a state. How? Let me show you an example. Now, state can be easily defined by a hook. Hooks are lightweight APIs used in React to perform multiple tasks. So we have a hook. So we'll write down import. So we'll import a hook from the React. So we'll write down use state. So to create a state, we have to use the use state method. Now let me open this, and on the place of this property, we'll use a state. So now let's create a hook. So creating a use state hook is very simple. We just have to write down use state. So we'll write down use state, and we have to pass the initial value. So for example, if we want to start the counter by 0, by 1, by anything, so we'll have to pass the initial value. You can also pass strings in the use state hook, but that's a different concept. For now, let's pass 0. Now, the use state hook will return two things. Use state hook will return an array which consists of two things. One is variable and the second is a function. Use state will give us an array and we'll destructure that array in two parts. First variable, second is function. So we'll write down num and change num, where num is the variable and change num is the function. Now let's pass that number. Now let's pass that num to the h1 tag and let's see the output first of all. So you can see we have 0. Nothing on the click because I have removed the on click method from this. So I have put this num inside the h1 tag and let's me put a on click method like this, and let's have an arrow function. This is basically an arrow function. In this arrow function, let me pass the change num, which is a function from the hook. We'll pass change num plus plus. Now let's check the output. We can refresh this. So if I click on, you can see the value is incrementing. So this is how we can increment a value. So this is how we can increment a value using a use state. So whenever we want to use a variable, so we can't use a property, but we have to use a state. So this is how we can use state inside the React. So this is all about state. In the next video, we'll discuss some designing tools of React. How we can add CSS, how we can use Bootstrap inside the React app. Thank you for watching this video.